just so out there. It's just been pummeled into the society as this is how you have to eat. And we have, I guess it's my plate now. It's not the triangle, but it kind of derives from that. And of course, we know every time, government agencies try to solve a problem, they always solve it so well. So,
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is Mark Strough. Mark and I have been friends for probably more than a year, maybe a year and a half, just on the internet, of course. But you tend to connect with people that you're kind of doing the same thing as. And the carnivore community is a pretty strong community because we all know we're doing something different. We're all trying to spread the message. Mark has a great Facebook group. He has a farm. And so we're going to get into all that stuff today. Mark, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, glad to be here. Enjoyed our last conversation. So love it.
Yeah, this is going to be good. So let's start with your story. Tell everybody how you came to just eat meat.
Okay, it's a long story, so we'll make it just the Cliff's Notes version. I had tried actually a carnivore way back in high school and then in college, just to help with one of my hobbies at the time was, or still is lifting and in the powerlifting community. And Mr. Steak and Eggs was Vince Gironda, and Barry Osley Stanley there was several articles, I think, in Mother Jones and different places, Rolling Stones. He was the sound guy for Grateful Dead and everything. So I'd read his story. He'd been a carnivore at that point since the mid 50s. And so I was aware of it and did it for a while. Of course, I believed everything that I was being told that I would, die of scurvy and everything. So I abandoned that after about a year. Loved it. It worked great. I knew it worked great for Vince Gironda and a lot of his clients. But you hear all this stuff and you think, well, and back then we didn't have a carnivore community or anything to push back on that. And that was the age of everything's low fat and, fat's evil and carbs are great. You can't get enough. And, eat the rainbow still was, coming around and all that stuff back then. So that was kind of into that. And then later on, when I started developing autoimmune issues, after everything else had failed, I had to started seeing people that were resolving their autoimmune issues and other things from avoiding plant toxins, which seemed like a totally foreign concept. I mean, plants are great. I mean, there can't be plant toxins. And, so I was like, I had to really change my way of thinking. Mr. Bill S. Scott was one of the people that really helped me in that. Lisa Bailey was another lady that helped me in that, and several others. So 2014 is when I went to more of a hyper carnivore way of eating. Probably 70% of everything I was eating was animal based, very, very, very few non-meat items at that point. If I back up a little bit further, I had an injury in 2009, had major surgery in 2011, and I had put on a lot of weight. I wasn't able to work out. My eating wasn't doing good. And actually, I went pure carnivore, except for one thing. I was eating the meat, but I was doing a little bit of sauerkraut, fermented sauerkraut at the time, because going from, a typical eating, even though it was fairly healthy at that point, I thought it was anyway. It wasn't from autoimmune issues. So I did have a little bit of sauerkraut that did help with the transition over. And I lost to right at 75 pounds and was getting back in shape and, was doing really great with it. And then social pressures, I thought, well, this is really odd. In 2014, that was really odd. And that was for Dr. Sean Baker. That was for any of this other stuff. It came around. There was very few carnivore communities out there. And so I thought, well, just to, fit in, I'm going to, add things back in. And health-wise, I was doing great. But my autoimmune issues were not really resolving at that point. And that was where Phil S. Scott and Lisa Bailey were really saying, you probably need to go 100%. And when I went 100%, it was just like night and day, the difference. I mean, it was within weeks, I was able to, snap my fingers, which I hadn't been able to do in years, be able to actually take a ring on and off without a hacksaw. And so, it made a huge difference. So I thought, this is just amazing. And I've stayed, carnivore ever since then. And everything's been great with autoimmune issues and everything like that.
Really amazing. So you're completely strict. You don't eat anything except animal products even now?
Yeah, just animal products. The only thing that I will veer away from very rarely, if we have any kind of on the farm here, if we have like some berries that we have like blueberries or blackberries, something like that. So, I may eat a few of those, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is pretty much all beef, eggs, a little bit of cheese. I do okay. I know some people don't do well with dairy. I do fine with dairy. I just have never before carnivore. I've never been a dairy person, except I do not do coffee. Outside of water, bone broth is about it.
So for the newbies out there wondering how this could be good and what it's like to transition, did you have any transitional problems? Did you have, any of those side effects or the keto flu or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I didn't at all. I don't know why. I know some people had, or I've had people I've trained and stuff and worked with in personal training and stuff, and I've had several that have had issues switching over, and I've had others that haven't. But I really had zero issues at all. I didn't have any issues, and I know some people they have tons of them. So I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I really had no problem at all.
So now in real life, do you ever have people that are still like shocked that you're just eating meat and
Oh
that you're
yeah.
still alive and like give you a hard time about how unhealthy it is, even now after all these years?
Yeah, every day. No, not as much. I think it's a little more mainstream than it was definitely 10 years ago in 2014. Then it was a very keto was radical at that point. I mean, we'd had the Atkins and stuff like that, but that had kind of faded away a little bit after he had passed, and then the keto movement was kind of coming on board, and I think that was even radical at that point. So it was hard for people to understand, how do you live without vegetables, without fruits, without the fiber and everything like that. And I get it. I mean, I had those same questions many times too, and I think it's just so ingrained. It's just in the ether of everything we hear from all the government experts, all the institutions, commercials, and everything like that. It's just, you've got to have this, and it's just so axiomatic that if you don't have that, your whole grains, your fruits and all that, you're just going to be in poor health, or you have to worry about just one number. I mean, oh my goodness, what's your cholesterol levels and different things like that. So I mean, that I could see where they'd be concerned, and I think everybody probably should have a little healthy concern also. You shouldn't just, hey, I saw something on YouTube. You need to research it. And I mean, I did quite a bit of research on this, where I just jumped in wholeheartedly. And now we're seeing more studies coming out showing this. Dave Feldman has just done amazing amounts of work, talking about hyper responders to cholesterol. And, so many people were so worried about that. And I mean, long story short there also, but I mean, he had got his health turned around, and his doctor was concerned with one factor, and that was his cholesterol, and his cholesterol was way up there, but everything else is great. Right. And so, I mean, you got to look at the whole picture. Are those numbers important? Not as much as we probably had thought years ago, but the totality of it. I mean, what's your inflammation? What is your metabolic health and stuff like that? That has more of an importance. And the food choices a lot of times are not what's driving the cholesterol numbers. I mean, that's your liver. And so there's I guess the Feldman protocol. If you need to drop your numbers down, it's pretty easy to do, just by changing a few things. So I think a lot of those things have changed the way people are looking at it. And I mean, they're seeing people that are thriving. If Dr. Sean Baker looked like Dr. Michael Greger or something like that, you'd probably think, oh my goodness, I don't believe I'm going to do carnivore. And I don't mean to be derogatory. I'm just being honest. And frailty is not healthy. If you have low muscle mass, it's not healthy, and that corresponds to your connective tissue, your bone mass as well. So I mean, I think you're not seeing everybody just dropping dead or having scurvy that has been doing this, and you have these people that have done this long term. You have the Andersons, Joe and Charlene, and so many others. You have out there that have done this for a couple of decades or longer, and they're all thriving. So I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, and then you look at the same people that give you a hard time for eating just meat and won't follow it because they don't believe it, they think it's crazy, but those same people will jump on the juicing bandwagon, they'll jump on the vegan bandwagon. I
Oh
wonder
yeah.
what it is about those things. I guess, like looking from the outside in, it feels like maybe it's all the colors and the rainbow, eat the rainbow,
Hmm.
like you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, that makes people gravitate towards that. But when you look at it on paper, a ribeye has more vitamins and nutrients
Yeah.
than every other
Yeah.
superfood that people recommend. It's really crazy.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, and eggs. Look at eggs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing the nutrients in there. And it just you scroll through these articles, and it's like one the other day was just going on about how you need to get your protein all from vegan sources, and how the protein from beef is not good, and just on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can get your protein from that, but the actual profile that you're absorbing is very hard. I mean, you're dealing with anti-nutrients along the way, digestive issues. And I know, years, well, forever, I shouldn't say just years ago, but up until I went carnivore, I would always do, which I mean, yeah, it definitely would come from animals, but I would be doing, whey isolates,
Yeah.
and had no idea why my stomach was just killing me all the time. And, then I would do, well, let me try some other protein. I tried almond protein or something like that years ago. And I mean, I was having all kinds of issues with it. And now I don't do any of that. I mean,
Right.
I don't eat it. And that stuff's not cheap either. I would much rather eat my protein than have to make a shake or drink it. And how much of that is even useful? And then, even with the whey, I mean, it will actually sometimes drive your blood sugar up crazy high. And you're thinking, well, it's protein. How's it doing that? So not all proteins are created the same. That's for sure.
Yeah, and having to make all of those combinations of beans and rice and different vegetables and things like that to get your protein, it's obvious to me that is not how humans evolved to make it this far. We did
Mhm.
not start out
No,
as vegans or plant-based or anything like that. That is
no.
not how God created us, because they weren't weighing things and measuring things and making sure they
Yeah.
had the right amount of protein. They were eating meat, and on occasion they would come across a
Mhm.
batch of wild berries, and they would eat them.
Mhm.
They didn't have, massive agriculture like we do
Yep.
now. And so
Yeah.
any idea that that's how we're supposed to eat
Mhm.
and that's how God made us to eat is just insane to me.
Oh, it is. It is. But I think we know it's just so out there. It's just been just pummeled into the society as this is how
Mhm.
you have to eat. And we have I guess it's my
Yeah.
plate now. It's not the
Yeah.
triangle, but it kind of derives from that. And of
Mhm.
course, we know every time, government agencies try to solve a problem, they always solve it so well. So, you can't really look at any number of where since we've had
Mhm.
the hearings in Congress where they were telling us this is how we should eat, and had
Yeah.
schools and institutions eat that way. You can't really
Yeah.
see any improvements in our health
No.
in most metrics.
Yeah, it's actually gotten worse since the original food pyramid was created, and since they started pushing grains and lots of
Oh,
fruit
yeah.
and vegetables. People used to eat a much more balanced diet before. So you
Yeah.
hear people now saying, you need a balanced diet, you need to eat more balanced. But what does that mean, and where does that come from? Because there is no study, there is no actual evidence that
Yeah.
proves that that's the right way that we should be eating.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's crazy. So what about bugs? What do you think about the idea that we should just get our protein from bugs?
Well, I guess it is carnivore. I mean, not probably for me, but
Yeah.
it doesn't sound too appealing.
Yeah.
But I would say it'd be better than eating a purely vegan way of eating, and have. I mean, it sounds nuts,
Yeah.
but I guess it's probably healthier than that, or probably healthier than all the grains and seed oils and all that. But
Yeah.
if they do that, I'm sure that's nobody's gonna want to eat just a bowl of bugs. So it's gonna
Right.
be about like the Impossible Burger and everything else is gonna have 50
Yeah.
different ingredients that we can't pronounce and
Mhm.
everything. And, about the balanced diet. And I know we can't just say, hey, well, we're just like this animal or that animal, but we can draw some inferences from it there. But how many animals eat a wide variety? Many animals only eat one sole
Mhm.
food, and many eat a very limited. I mean, most would eat a very limited amount of food, unless we're talking about some of the scavengers and different things
Mhm.
like that. But most of your animals do not have a wide variety at all, just the opposite of that. And until recently, with shipping things from Peru and China and Indonesia and everywhere
Mhm.
like that, we didn't even have that option here to eat a wide variety. So that's more kind of made up nonsense.
Yeah, and if you look at, the different species and the things that they eat, like ducks and chickens, they eat bugs, so we're probably not supposed to eat bugs. I mean, I think we're a lot different than chicken. And then you look at cows and things like that, you look at the grazers.
Yeah.
I don't think we're probably grazers either. I feel like we probably should eat more like a caveman did
Mhm. Yeah.
than
Exactly.
than like a chicken or a cow even.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to look at it, and for people that are confused and trying to figure it out and feeling like this is just nonsense, they really should look at the conflicts of interest
Mhm.
for the people that
Yeah.
are on the US Dietary Guidelines Committee,
Mhm.
because I think one of them has something like 46 conflicts of interest. So if that
Yeah.
person is sponsored by or taking money from, or they have helped to raise money for them running for whatever position that they have, if those funds come from PepsiCo and Frito-Lay and Kellogg, that's
Yeah.
gonna be where their heart lies. That's gonna be who they side with when it's time to make those kinds of decisions about our dietary guidelines. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, if you're somebody out there saying, "Oh, this is the carnivore diet's nonsense," look at the food pyramid or the My Plate or whatever we're using now. I think if you looked at those conflicts of interest, you might see it differently.
Yeah, and I mean, Nina Tichel's book she came out with, and
Love
her
that.
Twitter account. It's great, big fat surprise, and I mean, just seeing all these conflicts of interest. We're not talking about just like
Mhm.
right now. We're talking
Yep.
about going back from Ansel Keys on up,
Mhm.
and in the world of academia, how he would just blackball somebody. So they would, if they opposed his model of fat is
Mhm.
evil, and we need all the things he was recommending back then, they were shut out,
Mhm.
and it's really a shame how that has, and that's just gotten worse, and it's that way today even. And you see Coca-Cola, Gatorade, sponsoring all these studies, basically, hey, sugar's good for you, you need more sugar. And never mind the fact that the Gatorade generation, they're having all these injuries and stuff, and we know sugar directly breaks down a lot of connective tissues. It's not doing the body any good. Water is, I mean, this right here, the water,
Yeah.
that's the best
Yep.
thing you can have. We don't need all that. And it's actually more counterproductive than what you could imagine, but it's all thought to be so healthy and good.
Yeah. And when you sit down and really look at that information, you can kind of see, how those conflicts of interest are created and why those people side with who they side with.
Yeah.
And if you really sat down and thought about where our nutrients come from and looked at some
Mhm.
graphs on the beef versus the vegetables or the grains or whatever, you're going to see that this is the way that we are supposed to eat.
Mhm.
People are just so close-minded, especially
Yep.
with all those documentaries coming out about
Yes.
eating plant-based and things like that. And if you look at the funding for those, they are funded by vegan or plant-based
Mhm.
companies.
Yeah.
So of course, that's who the finding is going to come to.
Yeah. I mean,
You mentioned Nina's book. Nina's book is an amazing book. I actually read it 5 times. And I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and they said, I just don't understand how one man could have, you mean to tell me it was one man, like nobody
mhm.
confronted him, nobody said this is true.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. The people who did got fired, the people who did lost their jobs, they lost their careers. I mean, there
Yeah.
were really big upstanding people that
Yes.
were knocked down because of it.
Yes. I mean, they basically never worked again almost. It was
Yeah.
almost that point, if you defy him. And I'll even back up a little bit even before him. I mean, you had the Christian Science movement with the Post and the Kellogg brothers, and they were largely doing the same thing, is that we need to get off, any kind of meat and animal products. It needs to be all grain based and cereal. And they had a huge impact in Loma Linda. I mean, you look at where a lot of that research came from, and it's always funny when you look at the Blue Zone book and all the documentaries on PBS and everything like that. It's funny how they pick and choose things. It's like the Island of Sardinia. They have all the greatest health span, all this stuff, and totally ignore they have one of the
Mhm.
highest levels of autoimmune, hits home to me, in the whole
Yep.
world. And they'll talk about how in Loma Linda with the Christian Science, or how their health markers are so good. They could go over to Utah and look at the Mormons who do eat meat,
Mhm.
and they would find their health metrics are even better. Don't even
Mhm.
mention it. Say the only blue zone we have is in Loma Linda, California. No, I mean, if you look at, so what are the reasons those two places are healthier? Well, probably have a group of people and they're not out partying, they're not smoking, they're not drinking, not doing other things like that. Well, that right there alone is going to help regardless how they're eating in a lot of ways. So they kind of conveniently leave that out. And then he doesn't, I don't think he ever mentions Hong Kong in the book. Then they talk about Okinawa. Okinawa has, I think, one of the highest per capita consumption of pork, and they're in the blue zone, but they leave that totally out. Singapore, they don't even want to mention that either. And so you look at these places, areas where have the highest lifespan, it's not where you would think. So there's just so much propaganda out there, and it's everywhere. It's in the schools. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Enough with the heavy stuff. What does a typical day of eating look like for you?
Well, I'm pretty boring. I'm kind of minimalistic, so it's usually a high fat beef. Ribeyes are my favorite. Those are what I go to every day. That's my favorite. But typically my meal is going to be a couple of big, thick, fatty ribeyes covered in butter and a few eggs with it. And when I say a few eggs, that's usually about a dozen eggs, and heavily salted. I do like salt. Used to, I hated salt. I really like salt. I know some carnivores do not, but I do. I seem to do better with salt. If we're doing any kind of family things, and I mean by family, if we have anybody coming out or something like that, you don't want to just have, oh, well, I'm just going to eat ribeyes and, nothing like that. So one thing we've learned over the years is that ground hamburger meat is about the most universal thing in the world. So if me and Lori, my wife, she's carnivore, we'll just, have our bowl of meat, we'll put some cheese in it, whatever we want to do, and it's good. Everybody else, they can have if they want the chips, they want the lettuce, the tomatoes, onions, whatever they want, it's there. So that way, it's not like you're having to create two separate meals and stuff. So, and leftover hamburger meat, I'd use it all the time. So that's probably the typical day of my eating.
Yeah, we use the same things over and over again too, and we love to have like the leftovers for the next day. It just makes life so much easier, so much less cooking and preparing.
It does. It is. And then, we love all your stuff that you do with that, because with our kids and especially like that, it kind of makes it more interesting. I'm just a boring person when it comes to eating,
Yeah, I kind of am.
But it's kind of nice to get other people to be able to, if they need it. Some people do need that. They need that more of a entertainment, I guess, with their, so, that actually works good to kind of have that around, and you can just add different things to it. And we've been doing those. I've been probably bugging you, trying to get the recipe just right. We've been doing the cheese, like the Cheez-Its, and that we finally got it figured out, and we had to get the right cheese and everything, and that's just been great. The kids like it. We've had a few fails at it too. I've tried different types of cheeses, and it didn't turn out so good on a few of them, but on some of it turned out really good. Yeah.
I find cheddar works the best. 250 degrees for what I tell you, 35 minutes, right?
I think 35, yeah.
Yeah, 250 degrees for 35 minutes, just regular slices of cheese, and they come out like a chip. They are so good. And I just want to say, just a second ago, you were moving your hands and it gave us a thumbs down on the screen. Did you see that?
I seen that. I didn't know what that was.
I don't know. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So when people see it, you did not mean thumbs down, you meant thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. I didn't
So weird. I don't know why it does that.
Before.
I need to look and see if there's a way to turn that off. It's so weird. It's happened a couple of times, and I'm just like, what is going on?
I was wondering. I had no clue.
I know. Okay, so now tell us about your farm.
Okay, we have a little over 200 acres here, and we have cattle. We have chickens, and they're all, free range and everything. We also have some guineas and stuff in there too. And my daughters are into horses, so we do have horses as well. And then we have have our guard dogs and our things like that around here as well. So that's pretty much it. We had a difficult time the last few weeks. My tractor wasn't working right in the cold, and we had some issue, and it wasn't the fuel. So we had some issues getting the hay out and getting the ice broke. But we enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. I love being on a farm, love being out away from everybody, and it's kind of fun. Oh, we have a peacock also. Recently, I just said that we had one that just showed up here over a year and a half ago, and he's riding, or she is a peafowl. I know I didn't get that right. I know people will be correcting me. It's a peafowl. I know the difference, but most people don't know that. So we call her a peacock, and she's out here strutting around a little bit, but she just showed up, and we don't know where she came from. So Yeah, but we enjoy it. We have a good time out here.
That's awesome. Okay, so if you had one piece of advice for people, what would it be? Somebody who wants to get started, somebody who's sick and has tried everything else, let's say.
Well, do your research. I think that first and foremost, don't just, get on Instagram or say, hey, well, I seen, so and so and they're doing great and I'm just gonna jump into this and do it. Do your research. Make sure it's something you're doing for the right reasons. And the thing that I disagree with, and it's not just the carnivore, it's with the vegan community, it's with anything. This is not a fix all for everything. And I think a lot of people think that I'm going to do this for 3 months or a year and everything's going to be perfect. I wish that were the case, but it can do a vast amount of difference in people's health, especially if you're eating the things that are causing the issues. As a lot of as we know, the plant toxins, if they're causing problems with autoimmune issues, gut issues, mental issues, emotional, that can a lot of times be largely helped by going carnivore. But get around people that know what they're talking about. There's some great research out there, actual research, and there's some good resources. We didn't have that 10 years ago, and I got into some bad resources too. And some groups that weren't so good and weren't so helpful. They're almost like a cult, and actually they probably were. So you want to make sure you're getting it around people that are not overly dogmatic. And now I'm not in the camp of thinking that you can eat 400 grams of carbohydrates and sugar and you're still carnivore. I think there's you just like saying, well, I'm a vegan, but I eat steak. So I mean, I don't. Words matter. Yeah. So I mean, there is definition, but then you have the people who think, oh my goodness, I looked at a vegetable, so I'm not a carnivore now. So you gotta get with the right people. I think that's really important, and just learn from it. It's an N=1 experiment. What worked for Serena may not work for me, may not work for you. What worked for me, vice versa, it may not work that way. So everybody's different. We're all unique. So just take notes, be patient, and that's tough. I get that. But it's one of those things that can really change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. And if you try and you're still keeping little things that aren't carnivore in your diet, be honest with yourself. Give it a really good try. Because like Mark said, when you went 100%, it made a huge difference. And Dr. Chafee says going that last 5% on carnivore can make 95% of the difference for most people. And it's true. It makes a huge difference. If you go that last little bit, it can really clear up some things that you're not having good luck with. So don't give up if it's not working. Be honest and really look at your diet and see what you're doing, because that can make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Chafee is such a great resource, a voice of reason in this community. I really have utmost respect for him, but there's so many others too. I mean, there's just so many. We've got some really good people here that are so helpful, and I think that is something we need to be very thankful of. And we have you. We have you. You're helping get this information out. You're helping with the food. You and Jess, I get, it's just amazing some of the stuff you've all made up and created, and it's like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. I'm like, I didn't know you could make this out of animal products, and it's just amazing the different things to give us some variety in the carnivore community too.
Yeah, there's some pretty good resources out there. So don't give up, do your own research, and tell people where they can find you, Mark, and about your Facebook group.
Okay, I have a Facebook group. It's called Mark's Health and Nutritional Group. We've been around since I think 2016, and we're not a big group. We have a little under 4,000, and we try to be helpful, kind. That's the main thing. I don't want people on there being mean. And we have a lot of people that come there, and they're just wanting to learn. They're wanting to see. It may not be for them, but we don't need. I don't want anybody being mean or vicious like that. We're there to help. We're all on a path, and we need to be helpful. And if we can't be helpful, we probably should just be quiet. And I've seen so many groups where somebody asked a question, and they're just viciously attacked and demonized nearly for asking a question. And it's like anything you do for a long time, you get good at it. But you fail to understand sometimes that somebody that is just beginning, they don't know the things that you have learned over the years, and it may be second nature to us or something, but it may not be to them. And when they asked a question like, okay, I'm having this gut issue now, and like, well, you're not doing this right, not doing that, and
Mhm.
just like that. And that's one thing we don't want. But I'm there, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter. I don't really post much there, more of a stalker. And I've not been too active the last year. We've had a lot going on. We had some family stuff going on with my wife's family, health issues, and my parents are elderly. We had some issues, and I had some issues with my eyes. And so I've not been as active. I'm everything's kind of doing a lot better right now. So we're a little more on there. But yeah, we're out there to help people out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we do this. That's why we speak, right? That's why we speak
Absolutely.
about carnivore, is just so we can help as many people as we can.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for joining me today. This was really great.
Well, I enjoyed it. Anytime. I love it. Love your content, and we appreciate the work you do. You do an amazing work there.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time here on the Carnivore Revolution.
And thumbs up, not thumbs down. So
That's
thumbs
exactly
up.
right.
That's right. Oh,
Oh.
Hey, looky there.
What in the world?
I have no idea. I don't know if I should do it. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Zoom, what in the world?
I don't know. That must be something new. Maybe it's something we turned on the filters or something, but let's see. It only did it once.
won't do
Oh,
it.
there it goes. Wow. I like this.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Learn all kinds of